L&D's job is not just L&D's job anymore. L&D's job is to support the workforce through, and the workforce is a big part of that. So finding ways to have the workforce get engaged in creating the content, creating the visuals, creating the videos, is going to enable us to increase our capability and the support that we're able to give the organization.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are and wherever you're watching from. My name is Matt Pierce, and we're in the Visual Lounge. And today we're going to be talking about visuals with the one and only David Kelly. If you don't know David, he's got a great body of work out there. He's done a ton of work with organizations like the Learning Guild, and he's been a leader in thinking about future technologies and how technologies and L&D come together. And we're going to be talking about some visual stuff today, and I'm very excited. So let's go ahead and dive in, and let's introduce David Kelly to you all. So, lots you could say about David, but David constantly is exploring the convergence of learning and technology, demonstrating a profound commitment to transforming workspaces and enriching lives through innovating learning strategies. With over 2 decades of experience in learning and performance leadership and consulting, he brings his passion to life in his daily work as a dynamic strategist, speaker, and writer, inspiring others to view their work through a fresh technology-enhanced lens. He is the former chairman and CEO of the Learning Guild, and if you've never seen him, I think I've only ever seen him outside of a blue shirt once or twice. I'm so happy to welcome David Kelly to the Visual Lounge.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt.
And I'm glad you didn't wear the customary blue shirt today, but
it feels a little out of place, but it'll work out. You can always fix it in post.
That's right. Anything can be fixed in post, right? Well, David, I'm excited to have you here because I think of all the people I talk to, you are someone that has had this huge lens on kind of the industry as a whole, watching it, seeing it evolve, ebbs and flows. And to me, that's exciting. And I'm hoping we get a chance to maybe look through that lens a little bit with you. But before we start, we always like to ask for a tip. What's one tip you would give the audience about using whether images or video in their work, particularly as it applies to learning and development?
Sure. I think the biggest tip that I would give is instead of looking at it through, I'm going to reframe your question a little bit. Instead of looking at how do I use videos and images as a learning and development professional, how do they get used in the context of learning and development? And I mean that just in the sense of, it's not just what we're doing. And sometimes I think that the best visual imagery that we can get is coming from the people that we support, who are able to increasingly, so and I'm sure this will come up in the discussion, increasingly capture the work that they're doing visually while they're doing it in a way that resonates a lot more than some of the formal stuff that we're doing, and to embrace it and find the ways that the visuals can be created by the people who are actually doing the work, and leveraging that in the work that we do. So that would be my first tip, is to look at not only the visuals that you create, but I think the higher potential opportunity is the visuals that can be created by the people who are actually doing the work that we can leverage.
Well, let's actually just use that as a jumping point to dive into our fuller conversation, because I do appreciate that viewpoint of, people are on the line doing things, and we say on the line, that could be literally on a line or at a computer, wherever they might be. I get a sense, though, in industry, learning and development professionals, we like control. We like, it's a little bit hard to overcome that because, like, oh my gosh, well, if Sue is doing the images, the visuals, the video, then what am I doing? What's my role in all this? So what's that picture you would paint for those professionals? People who are they see the value, like, oh gosh, that would save me some time, but there's always a big heavy kind of clause there, like, do I want people to do that or not? What do you think?
Well, I think that is I think you're correct, first off, that is a common area of discomfort for people in L&D as a generalization, and one that we need to get over. I mean, because I think the very nature of the applications that we use on a daily basis as part of our work, and I don't mean that as L&D professionals, I mean that just in the workplace. A lot of the applications that we use have these within their design. They're not learning tools. They're not performance support tools. They have the ability to capture and share what's going on. And that can be used in the context of learning. Now, in terms of the control aspect that L&D has, yeah, I get that there's part of that. And there should be quality control attached to it. I mean, it's not just, you do have to manage of is what's being shared the right information to be shared at the right time. And I think that those nuances are always going to be in the L&D professionals space to recognize not just what these things are, but what's the best forum for them to be shared around, what's the best forum for these assets to be leveraged. So I think if we pivot our mindset a little bit around less that we are the creators of this and more the creation of content is just one element of what we do in creating the experience. Our job is to create the experience that people can learn through. And lots of people can help create the content and the assets that are used to create the experience.
Yeah, I love that lens, right? Like that we see it as this kind of broader picture and having to get outside ourselves, because this does come up with a concern. We were joking about Donald Taylor a little bit before, just because his thumbnail was still in my loop here of programming. But something that he has said, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is that with AI in particular, and of course, how can we not talk about AI given our current kind of circumstances of the world, is that those who are in the learning profession really need to get beyond the production of content kind of mindset, that they're not just going to be producing content, but they need to be thinking about what value, the higher values they're going to bring. And so it sounds like that's exactly what you're saying, is that we need to not just be thinking about, oh, I can create 10 courses or, 5 videos or whatever it might be. And we need to do more than that.
We definitely do. And what I find, when you said that, it echoes a thought that I find myself having fairly often lately in this AI discussion around this feeling that we've been here before. And increasingly in the AI discussion, I find that it reminds me of when social media first emerged. When social media first emerged, we went through this phase where there was a content explosion. Everyone was blogging, everybody was doing all these different things, and suddenly this space that was just this tightly controlled space of editorial control of where information appeared on the web, suddenly it was everywhere. And suddenly there was this fear of that loss of editorial control, and there was this fear of what's my role if everybody's creating content. And that was that was very strong when social media emerged, and that echoes a lot of what's going on in the AI discussions here today. But I do think that there are lessons that could be learned in there. I mean, even though that we learned that there was a lot of content that was out there was really good. Like if somebody had a leadership development program that they needed to create, you didn't need to start from scratch. You could 75% of whatever, I'm throwing a random figure in that's not research, but a certain percentage of any leadership program is probably the same as you look from organization to organization. The fundamentals are really there. So how much effort do you really need to, do you need to start from scratch from there, or can you leverage the elements of other things that people are sharing that might be eligible to be used in your stuff? Can you curate a certain portion of what's out there that's high quality content that others have created, and then only focus the creation on the unique elements that are unique to your organization, that are unique to the goals that you have that are in there? And I think we're going down a very similar path here, where there are certain things that AI can help us create that can also help us distill some of the nuances that are in there that are unique to our organization. But we're still going to need to be that human that packages it all together, that understands the journey that people need to take, and the feelings that they need to have, and the conclusions that they need to make, and the critical thinking that's applied to it. It's not just a matter of regurgitating more content. It's a matter, I think it's even more important, that critical thinking piece and that curation piece is taking what AI is generating for us and what other people are generating with AI and making sure it's the right stuff at the right time. There's a validation piece that I think is even more important with AI than it was with social media that we're going to have to be doing. So there's a human element. It pivots what L&D professionals do, but it also makes it more human in terms of the value that we're generating.
Well, your comment about the social media stuff made me think about when Yammer first came out, like social media internally. It's like, yeah, are we going to have another Yammer? And no offense to Microsoft and people who created Yammer, but it was, it's like, hey, let's do this thing internally, and it didn't really work. So, no. I'm curious, David, because one of the challenges, I think, if someone is listening to this, they're hearing a lot of the same, like, we got to keep the human in, we got to have critical thinking. You know, I will admit it's so easy sometimes with AI just to say, do the thing, do this, make this, right? And so what skills are you feeling like at a kind of this critical juncture where we're not so far into AI that it's doing everything? It's, you know, because it's still not good at everything, but it's coming along pretty quickly with different things. So if I'm a learning development professional, particularly, and we'll get tied back into images and video here in a second, but generally, what are the skill sets? Like, if you were, let's say you're starting an organization, you're going to hire some learning development professionals. What are 3 things you want those folks to know that are just like absolute critical must-have capabilities?
It's less something no and more a capability. I do think that if I'm hiring a team today, one of the things I'm looking for in that team is show me that you have an innate curiosity and you have the skill set to put that curiosity to work. Because the reality is, I do think that what it means to be an L&D professional in 2025 is going to look very different in 2027 and 2020 and 2030. It's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be a wholesale change and roles are going to be eliminated or anything like that. But I do think that there's going to be a strong level of evolution. And for me, that curiosity piece is critical for it, because I don't want to hire someone today and have you be looking at your job the exact same way 2 and 5 years from now. I want you to be really curious today about what you need to be doing differently as technology is emerging, as these AI tools normalize and the policies and procedures attached to them and the usage of them are normalized within organizations and within their cultures. I want you to be curious about that and embracing it and preparing yourself for the future of that, so that you kind of, I'm hiring someone that anticipates that their role is going to look different than the day that I hired them. So that's a big piece of it, and being able to identify that within an L&D professional, if I was hiring somebody today, would be a critical element of that. I do think that there's also a certain layer of how articulate is the person I'm doing that. And I don't mean that just from the baseline expectation of what that means in terms of interacting with people every day. A lot of the stuff that goes on with these AI tools, the output is going to be driven by how well I articulate what I'm asking for.
Yep.
And the ability to, and it's one of the skills that I've been working on as I start with these tools. I am not someone who can grab a pen and create I'm not an artist. It's just not a skill that I've ever developed. But my ability to create an image that matches what I like, one of the things I've noticed as a skill that I'm building as I start using these tools is my ability to articulate what I'm seeing and what my vision is and how I want that to be brought to life. Am I able to articulate that vision? And that's a skill that's going to be really, really powerful as these tools become more embedded into everything that we do. So the articulation and the curiosity that's there. And then I would get closer to the core L&D skills. Are you able to take those skills and apply them in the context of adult learning theory and instructional design? The principles that are still going to be core to the work that we do, are you able to apply these other things in that space?
Yeah, I love that, because I think, curiosity is, hard to measure for. Like, I don't know that we have a good curiosity test, but I love that because I do think we are evolving, and we're always saying we're evolving in L&D, right? How many changes have we gone through? How many big buzzwords have you seen in your career? But it does feel like there is some fundamental shift. But being curious allows so much, because I'm and I can only speak from my experience that, as an L&D person who no longer wears an L&D title, that curiosity has allowed a little bit that I have has allowed me to explore a variety of different roles while still keeping at least somewhat of a lens in this world and try to make things helpful. So, well, with that said, David, let's talk a little bit more about visuals, and you've been thinking about this a long time and thinking about kind of the role visual communication is playing, and particularly in kind of current state where, most people are at least having a lot more online meetings than they have ever had before. There's cameras everywhere. There's opportunities for visuals. What are your kind of high level thinking about the role visuals should or are playing in kind of the modern L&D workplace?
Well, we have the ability to I mean, visual, the old cliche, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I do think that there's truth to that cliche, but I also think that if we lean into that everybody can create those pictures now. I mean, I can't imagine even something as simple as how often I use within the work that I do. It's not a learning moment. It's not it's more of a performance moment. But how often someone is talking to me about an issue that they're having, and I just say, "Can you just share your screen? Like whatever tool we're
Yep.
using, can you just share your screen because I want to see what you're doing." Even the other day, I was having a conversation with my daughter, and she wanted to show me something around. She's in Orlando, and she wanted to show me something she was looking at, and she was just trying to explain to me what this thing was. And I said, "What's that?" And she was like, "What do you mean? What is that?" I'm like, "That thing on the shelf over there." I said, "What do you mean?" And then just because of the way the system was designed, I just circled it. Like we were using FaceTime, and I just put my finger on it. I circled. I said, "What did you just do?" And I said, "I just circled what I want you to talk about." She didn't know it was a functionality that it was there, but just that moment, like we had like two or three interactions back and forth of me trying to tell her what it was I wanted her to look at. And then I just was like, well, hold on a second. And I just used my finger and I circled it. And just that little element of how natural and embedded adding that one little visual to the equation just got us over the hump. And the ability for people to use tools in that manner of just kind of regardless of what tool it is, can I show you what I'm doing? Can I show you what I'm describing here? Whether it's capturing a screen grab and including it in the email where you're describing something in there, it's becoming just a normalized thing that we need to be paying attention to. I mean, if it's normalized within the tools that people are doing within their work, then it should be then using that and leveraging the ability for people to generate that sort of content in the moment should be leveraged within our strategies.
So let me ask you about that because I do see that normalization. Obviously, we're big fans of showing what you know with tools like Snagit and Camtasia and whatnot, but it feels like there's a gap still because not everyone does it. It's not like, yes, I think it's becoming more prevalent, and I think tools are getting better about making it easier to do, like you just talked about. But from a like kind of a leveraging that, what does that look like? Do you think? And we'll hypothesize here. We don't, we're not going to talk about. We don't have probably a very specific example. Maybe you do, but like I'm curious for you. What does that look like for an organization to say like this is becoming normal? We've got a body of people who have knowledge, who need to share that knowledge. We're going to make it easier. But like, are there things that, again, kind of put in our L&D hats on, things that we should be doing to really maybe grease the skids a little bit, grease the wheels, get it going?
Well, there's two elements to that in my mind. First is the modeling of it. First is the doing this more often as we can. Anytime, and there are so many times that I was always very strategic about doing this when I was working internally within organizations. Is if I did something that leveraged those tools, I wanted it to be visible. I wanted it to be seen as something that I use this tool in this way to solve this problem and make work a little smoother for people. And I wanted people to see that so that it was modeling the fact that like it can be done and this is the tool that I had to do. You have this tool too and you can do it. But also it kind of starts building like these little moments where you put it out there and you're like, it's okay to do this thing. The more that I did it, the more I've been in organizations where I did that, where there were lots of people above me that it was just kind of like, all right, I'm going to do this thing, and if people have a problem with it, they'll let me know. It's always been my approach to work is I'll find out where the line is when someone tells me I've tried it. But like do that, share it. And then the more that it gets done and people see higher up people in the organization either doing it or commenting on it, the more other people start to do that. And for me, that's almost the bigger issue. The technology piece of it is the barrier of technology of being able to practice this sort of thing and get it embedded into an organization so that people can take advantage of it. It's not a tech barrier. These tools it's just part of good design now. And it's that the ability to share what you're doing and reduce the friction on how to make that happen is becoming really, really easy for people. So for me, it's less around teaching people the technical skills on how to do these things and more about getting your organization to support that sort of a thing. Because if you think about how you live your daily lives, in terms of the ability to share what you're actively doing in a digital space with someone else, we do that so naturally. And the technical skills of how to do those sorts of things exist in the workplace. It's just as easy to do it in the workplace in most cases, but yet our behavior is different. So if the technical elements of how to execute a particular task is the same in two different environments, but the behavior is different, then it's probably not the technical piece that's the barrier. It's probably the cultural piece. And for me, that's the bigger element of this is to normalize this sharing, this creation and sharing of digital content so that other people can learn from it within our organizational cultures rather than the capabilities for us to do it on a technical standpoint.
Yeah. So love the idea of pulling it. It's a cultural issue because you're right. It's almost ubiquitous now to be able to do it. And we're going to get up on time here soon, so I want to be mindful of that. But just from a perspective of culture, right? I can see like you said, obviously you work in an organization. A lot of people are willing to push the line forward, see like, hey, have I gone too far? But if you're, maybe we've got some higher levels. I don't know how many CLOs listen to this or how many directors of learning listen to the podcast, but from that kind of like change management, higher level thinking, if you're working in an organization, you've been a CEO. What's on your mind about trying to push that? What are you thinking about? How do you push that culture forward? Because there's some things that are cultural. We are looking for certain kind of behavior actions, and this is a behavior. It's an action we want people to take, but it's also something that's a physical thing, right? Like we want them to hit the print screen button. We want them to click share screen without necessarily all the commentary that comes with every time someone shares screen on Zoom nowadays, because that's just become a normal thing, right? But so from that higher level and kind of wearing that CEO, CLO type hat, what would you say is like a consideration that organizations should be thinking about that culturally?
So there's two key elements to me to answer your question. One is the modeling of it, and I mean that in a couple of different ways. I mean the doing it yourself where it's appropriate, and celebrating the success of other people doing it. So doing it yourself, and I think that's a practical thing. There are certain things where if I want to do something as a habit, then I will have it on my calendar as a to-do list task to do. And some days it should just naturally happen, but other days it's just kind of like, no, I didn't have I have to create that situation because I want to model. It's important for me to model it. And if something didn't naturally come up for me to share a screen, then what could I do today to model that? Like just to actively seek it out, to treat it as a task that I have to do this every single day. And that's something that I've gotten in the habit of doing, that if there's something that I want to do habitually, it will be on my to-do list as something that I have to do every day, and I will check it off when it happens. But if it gets to be 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I haven't done it yet, I will find a way to make it happen so that I can create that, just make it that habit of something that happens all the time. And it works, because there are times that I've done that, and I've wound up taking it off the to-do list because it's just something I habitually do. The other thing that I would say is, I like the metaphor of when it comes to culture. I like the metaphor of a bank account where every behavior, every action that you take is either a deposit or a withdrawal to that bank account where that trust is based on. And for me, when it comes to the higher level people in an organization that are supporting a shift like this, yes, it's important for the daily tasks, those little deposits that you do every day that create that culture of trust. But for me, the bigger issue, the more impactful issue, is what are you going to do when something goes wrong? Mm-hmm. Because I could share those things every single day. I could be promoting and complimenting every single person for the little things that they do every single day. But if on day 365 somebody shares an image and it had an account number in the background, and they didn't blur it out and they screwed up, and I fire that person because they screwed something like that up, that voids out all that. There is no deposit that can overcome for a lot of people the fact that somebody shared it and they got fired for it. That they're going to learn a lot more from how you handle the bad, someone making a mistake, than the rewards that you gave to people for doing the right thing. And I think that's a critical thing for the senior people is how do you handle it when someone doesn't do it the way that was designed? Do you treat it as a teachable moment, or do you bring down the hammer? Because that's going to have a bigger impact, I think, long term than anything else.
Well, I love that because it also, as you're going through that example, right? The same thing with AI, because there's lots of risk and challenges and governance issues that come along with AI. But I love that thinking about, well, what could go wrong and how do we deal with that in a way that builds that trust and encourages people, whether it's using visuals and sharing out, that kind of constant way to connect and communicate those ways. So, David, this has been fantastic, and of course, you're someone we'll have to have you back sometime because there's always more to talk about, and you're got so much knowledge and wisdom. But we're gonna move on to have a little bit of fun with our speed round segment, and so we're gonna dive in. Here we go. All right, David. I as I mentioned to you earlier off call that I'm a little rusty. I didn't get everything set up, but I do have the die. We're going to roll. We got 3 questions here, so you never know what you're going to get asked. So let's go with the first question. It is an 11 of 12 potential questions. Number 11 is, this is perfect. If you had to pick one image that represents you, what would it be? So,
Wow, that's a great question. What image would represent me? Gosh, that I feel like you've just given me an AI exercise to go. Um, I think I would like to think an image of. I mean, at least what I would try like. Is it me or is it? It's more of an aspirational image maybe because this is the
Perfect.
way that I always try to work. If it was an image of me, it would be someone kind of a visual image of people, a bunch of people climbing ladders against the wall, and me not judging anybody who's on the ladder. Me just kind of looking at where you are and saying, all right, what do you need to get to the next rung? Because that's your definition of success. It's kind of always the lens through which I've focused my work is to try to remove judgment from the equation and just kind of meet people where they are and help them to get to whatever the next step is in the direction that they need to go. So that might be an interesting image for it.
I think it's a great image. I was going to say for you, if you really struggle, is I just your image of you with your family at every conference I've been to that was part of the guild. That's kind of we watched your
Sure.
family grow up, so that's always fun.
Nice to hear. Thank you.
Well, next question is a 2. So if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go and why would you go there?
Um, if I could go anywhere in the world right now, it would probably be New Zealand. Just because I've always wanted to go there. It's one of those things where you're not going to New Zealand at least for where I live. You're not going to New Zealand for a weekend.
Right.
You've got to pretty much block out 3 weeks of your life between travel and the amount of time to do that. So if I could remove all the other constraints of life and just kind of say you can do whatever you want, you got a month free, where would you go? I would be in New Zealand. I would get on a plane and go to New Zealand and just explore that beautiful country and all it has to offer.
I'm with you, and walk to Mordor while you're at it, right?
Exactly. I will. Yeah. All right. So yes, Mordor would be part of it. I would find the one of the many Lord of the Rings tours that exist there. My wife would give me that data myself, and I would indulge.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, I just rolled the die. We got one more question, and it's equally as challenging as the rest. If you could instantly acquire a new skill, what would it be and why? It doesn't have to be L&D related. It could be a skill that maybe you need something right now. I don't know, but you got a skill.
I would bring it back to what I said earlier. If I could just wave a magic wand and give myself a skill, it would be the skill of drawing and painting and being able to create something visually. It's something that I just never developed it. I'm always fascinated and jealous when I can see someone just take a pen and start creating exactly what's in their mind. So yeah, that would be my magic wand wish is to have that skill. It's a wonderful skill for those who have it.
Yeah, well, something you can practice, right? Can always
Mm-hmm.
practice. Well, David, this has been awesome to talk with you. If people want to connect with you, they want to learn more from you, where should they reach out to?
Sure. The easiest place is on LinkedIn. I would highly recommend if you want to look for me on LinkedIn. My parents were kind enough not only to have one of the most generic last names on the planet, but to bless me with one of the most generic first names on the planet. So if you're going to look for me on LinkedIn, I encourage you to search like David Kelly Learning Guild. It's part of the profile that's out there, even though that's my former organization, but at least that'll get you to my profile. that's the greatest way to connect with me. Message me. I love to have these conversations. So I'm pretty accessible on LinkedIn, and I have a couple of newsletters that I publish, some curated content and some meandering thoughts of my own that you can consider taking a look at while you're there.
Awesome. Well, David, we like to wrap up the show the same way every time, where we ask our guests for their final take. So, David Kelly, what is your final take for today?
I think my final take would be to kind of a recurring theme that we had in discussion here is a lot of stuff that we do. We have to look at how we can get other people involved. L&D's job is not just L&D's job anymore. L&D's job is to support the workforce and the workforce is a big part of that. So finding ways to have the workforce get engaged in creating the content, creating the visuals, creating the videos, is going to enable us to increase our capability and the support that we're able to give the organization.
Perfect. I love it. And David, thank you so much for joining me in the Visual Lounge.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, everybody. You heard David. Go connect with him. There's a plethora of things that he talks about, and he can guide you and direct you in because he's seen so much and he's got so much great experience. But we're so grateful for him joining me here in the Visual Lounge. And of course, we're all about improving, getting better, whether it's your culture, whether it's using images and visuals. We're talking about AI. We're talking about all this to bring it together. And of course, as a company that works, I work for TechSmith. We make Camtasia and Snagit. We've got some great new tools that are coming out. Go check those out. Go look for Camtasia online. It's free. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. And, we'd love to hear from you. If you got feedback or suggestions or guests that you would like to recommend, reach out to us on LinkedIn, or you can email us at thevisuallounge@techsmith.com. We're always happy to hear from you. And of course, we'd like you to get better at everything that you're doing. So make sure you take some time to level up every single day. Thanks, everybody.